Hello and welcome to Fin24. Today in studio we have Mike Teuchert, a tax specialist from Mazars. Welcome, Mike.
Hi there, welcome, thank you.
And we are going to be chatting about how Minister Nene went about rightly or wrongly in implementing new tax proposals. Mike, was the way in which Minister Nene increased personal tax the best way that he could have gone about getting in the billions that he needed?
Look, I think what you need to look at is how he did it. He could have possibly have just increased the marginal. We all know he needs a lot more. He needs some additional tax revenue. So he could have possibly just increased the marginal tax rate, say from 40 to 45%. The problem with that is, from a global perspective, everybody sees our marginal rate as 45%, and it casts a negative aspersion on us with regard to global competitiveness. The other thing that you've got to consider is that by doing that, he's only really affecting approximately 300,000 taxpayers. And you've got to increase that marginal rates quite substantially to get the numbers that he requires.
To get the 16 billion that he needed.
Yeah. So I think the way he's done it, he's actually been very clever. He's increased the rate per bracket by 1% all along, other than the lowest bracket. And he's also widened the brackets, but not by as much as he did in the past. And the effect of that is anybody earning roughly about more than 350,000 Rand is going to be paying more in tax, and those below slightly less. But if you consider prior years, what was happening is we were getting inflation relief in the form of the relaxation of the brackets and the increase of the primary rebate. And invariably anybody in a in a tax-paying position was actually paying less tax the following year than the prior year. But in this instance, those people that are paying less are paying more than they would have. The saving they're getting is not as great as they previously got. And then you've got those are roughly above 350,000 that are going to be paying more.
But we are still only looking at a very small percentage of society who will be contributing.
Well, we've got 15 million taxpayers. 7 million are under 70,000, and we've got 8 million above that. So you roughly are going to be affecting possibly 8 million out of 15 million taxpayers are going to be bearing the full burden and spreading it along amongst those people. Yes, obviously, it is a scenario that the people at the higher levels or the higher income earning levels are going to be paying rand for rand a lot more than those people down at the lower levels. Relatively speaking, they're more likely going to be bearing the burden similarly.
Can I ask you, should Minister Nene not have increased corporate taxes? Why not corporate but personal?
You know, if you consider where the tax take is coming from, last year approximately 30% of the tax came from individuals. This year it's roughly 36%. And corporates, we were roughly 20%, and corporates have now declined to 18%. So first of all, I think corporates are struggling. And then second of all, I think he's very aware from a global perspective. Global competitiveness, our tax rates are roughly in line with other competing jurisdictions for fixed development investment. So I think he was maybe reluctant to increase the corporate tax rates from a global competitive perspective, and as well as the fact that corporates really are struggling and he is expecting to get less from them in any event.
Okay, but we are looking at a scenario where the consumer, the ordinary South African consumer, actually feels a little bit hard done by this budget. If we're looking at the tightening of belts in personal tax, also the fuel levy and the fuel increases, how do you think that came about, and what effect do you think that is essentially going to have?
Look, I think we knew he had to increase one of the indirect taxes. That is such a hot political potato. I think he doesn't want to have a standoff with the unions. If you had to increase the VAT rate, you're going to have a problem from a political perspective. Increasing the fuel levy, I think, or the fuel taxes, because it's made up of a general fuel levy as well as the road accident fund levy, I think he's achieved a very similar objective. Petrol in this country, the cost of petrol affects most consumers, just about everybody in our day-to-day lives. Whether it's public transport or own transport, we all need fuel. So I think he's been quite clever in the way he's done it. Yes, it's going to have an effect. It's going to be a big step up. You know, this year the fuel taxes have increased by 24%, and I think last year they were about 6%.
Yes.
Relatively low,
Yes.
low increase previous year, and on this year it's a large increase. Yes, I think we're going to feel it, and it's going to really impact when everybody expects, as everybody is expecting, the fuel price to actually increase as a result of the dollar-based price starting to increase. You know, we've had this huge fall off, which not sure why it's arisen, but there are various theories. But it's anticipated it's going to go up.
Yeah, the fluctuation has to be taken into account. It's not something that stays the same all the time.
So if you look at it in today's terms, another 80 cents, yeah, we're still just over 10 Rand a litre. But in 2 months' time, you know, when the dollar price normalizes or starts increasing, we really are going to feel it. And I think it's going to have a huge impact on us. Maybe the difference is it might change behaviors. We might see more lift clubs coming back again, people using public transport, and something that people can manage in their day-to-day lives.
But we are also, I think, going to see, Mike, the increase in the fuel price filtering down into higher prices for products, for everyday products, basic products which consumers use. We are also probably going to see consumers having to considerably tighten their belts because of it. So would it be fair to say that consumers are justified in saying that this is not a consumer-friendly budget?
No, I agree. It isn't a consumer-friendly budget. It is definitely going to affect everybody, and it's almost having the same effect as if he had increased the VAT rate. And you are correct. I think we are going to see that knock-on effect of the increase in fuel price going all the way through the goods chain. We go, goods in our supermarkets are possibly going to be increasing.
What is going to be the turning point about these tax implications? When are we going to be able to look back on budget 2015 and say this was a good move or this was a bad move? How long?
I don't know how long we're going to be. Yeah, it's difficult. You know, just thinking about the rates as well. You know, we're almost getting to a stage where we've got a tax-paying population that is struggling. You also got to be careful how far you increase rates, and you start getting a bit of a backlash where people are getting a little bit upset that our tax rates are going up, and then you've got this constant barrage of corruption, etc., going on in the country. So, you know, at what stage, I don't know, but I think what he's done, it's maybe the fairest way of achieving it, and politically I think he's done a good move in that he's kept the labour movement out of the picture and not going to be too upset with him. And
so he's really not done anything to upset the apple cart too much.
Yeah, I would say so. He's a good politician. That's what it's about.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks for coming into Fin24, and we hope to have Mike Teuchert back, tax specialist from Azaz, to give us some more insight further down the line into tax implications of budget 2015.